Are you ready for a quilting adventure? Oh, have I got one for you here today. I want to show you these star pattern quilts that I made. There's a free pattern down below. I don't want you to miss that. But even more important is there's an opportunity to make a layer cake quilt and win $100 at the Fat Quarter Shop. That is an awesome deal. I'm Leah Louise from Inspired Quilting by Leah Louise, and I made this beautiful blue Kaffe Fassett star quilt out of layer cakes. The entire piece is made out of layer cakes, and that's what the challenge requires. So I have a layer cake quilt. I'm going to submit it onto the Fat Quarter Shop site on their Instagram and Facebook under hashtag Layer Cake Lotto, and somebody's going to win $100 gift certificate to buy more fabric. How awesome is that? And I hope everyone participates. There aren't that many entrants right now when I checked out the site. So be sure and get your quilt in. And I would love for us to be able to win some $100 gift certificates. How fun is that? But let's get back to a bit of quilting. These stars are glorious. The fabrics are great. And it's a lot of fun. I made the red quilt a month or so ago, about 6 weeks, I think. And I've done a comprehensive tutorial on how to make those stars and points and no-waste flying geese. So I'm going to link that below. But what I did do is create a pattern that has a pictorial review on how to do those too, so you can watch step by step. So if you decide to make this quilt, then you have all the information that you need. And I'm really excited to share this with you. So come on, let's take a look at some quilting and some beautiful blocks and some wonderful fabric and see what we can come up with. I'm so glad you're here today. Let's quilt. Oh, but first, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up so others will know how much fun we're having quilting. Okay, now it's time to get started. Don't you just love when a plan comes together? You may recognize this beautiful star. It's a 12 patch or 12 block quilt that I made with the Kaffe Fassett fabrics. And it's a simple 8-point star, and the blocks end up being like 16 inches. So it's nice, it's big, it goes together quick and fast. But what makes this block so intriguing, the fact that it's big, is you can use big prints in the center. And it's a great opportunity to showcase some fabrics. Now, in order to participate in a online contest, it's called the Fat Quarter Shop Layer Cake Lotto, you have to make a quilt using one or more layer cakes, but all the fabric has to be from a layer cake. And because I like backgrounds, generally you don't get background fabrics in a layer cake. So I kind of put it aside and thought, well, that's not going to happen. And then today, thunderstorm, lightning, rain, wind, stuck inside. I'm digging through fabrics, and I found my notes again about that quilt, that challenge. And I thought, you know, there might be a way I can do this. Let me get my layer cake out that I have. And I'm down to just a couple layer cakes. The other one was just all too small a print. It wouldn't work. But I have this Kaffe Fassett peacock, and these colors are wonderful. So I think I can get 12 blocks out of one layer cake, which is going to make a pretty darn good size quilt, given that these blocks are 16 inches a piece. So what I need to do is create my star. So I need a center and I need the points. Then I need a background. This is the part that I struggled with, but I'm going to show you how I think I resolved that. And then this here is going to be the corner accents. So if we look at this again, let me put, oh, there's another pretty one. I just love these stars. They turned out so great. So we've got a center block. So we'd pair it like this. We'd have a center block, which would go right in here, like that. And then these become our points. Let's see, it goes this way. These become our points from that center. So what I need is this right in here for my flying geese, and then I need to come up with something that I can do there as well. So what I think I can do is, by working with these, which are basically circles and dots, but they're two colors, because they're just two colors, if I contrast enough in here, it'll become a background. Like in this one, I could use this and put it in here, or I could use this. So what I have to do is play around with this a little bit, and that's what I wanted to get started with and see how this is going to look. It's going to be pretty wild and crazy, but I think we can do it. And then for these corners on the outside, I'll use these prints because they're small, they'll fit well together in the corners, and they won't be a detraction, but they'll make a really nice secondary pattern. So I got really excited going through this fabric, and I thought this is going to work really well. So let me pull some of this together, and I'm going to show you what the different blocks are going to look like, which fabrics will be, and I'll walk you through a sequence of how these are pieced. Now, the first video that I did with this quilt has it laid out explicitly. There's very clear instructions, all the dimensions, everything is there. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of that here, so we don't have to be repetitive. I'll put a link up above so that you can see that as well. And I'm going to put this together, and we're going to see what this looks like. It's either going to be hideous or fantastically gorgeous. I'm not quite sure which yet, but you know, I trust these colors. I trust these fabrics. I have a really good feeling about it. I've got my trusty notebook. I've been writing notes down of how I want to put this together, and I think this is going to come out great. So let me pull some together. I'll get one of the stars made up, then I'll show you how this works. And we're going to have a quilt, and we're going to enter this in the challenge. And I'm putting this out there because you've got a little more time to get involved in the challenge. And I hope you do, because this is going to be great fun. I'd love for a bunch of us to go ahead. And there aren't that many in there. I mean, there's less than 100 people right now, less than 100 quilt submissions, I think. And so that means that we've got a good chance if a bunch of us get in and come up with some different quilts. The other thing I want to share with you is the Fat Quarter Shop has an entire group of free patterns just for layer cakes, and many of them are far simpler than this. This is not complicated. It is going to take a little bit of time because we have multiple pieces and multiple shapes. It's not all just rectangles and squares. You get a flying geese blocks and then the half square triangles, and that makes it a little bit different, but it keeps it so interesting. But take a look also at the free patterns on the Fat Quarter Shop layer cake page, and you may find something there that you like particularly well. Let me go ahead and take care of this, and I'll be right back and show you what I come up with. A plan is coming together, and before I show you the final block, what it's going to look like, I want to show you the components that we use in order to make this. So the first thing, and I do mine in pairs, it just seems to work for me that way because of the way the layer cake numbers, most of the fabrics are in pairs, and I want to make sure I don't pair this same fabric for the point of the star with the same center. So I sort of alternate, and it's just one of the things I do. I like mixing my fabric up as much as possible and not being repetitive within the quilt. And like I said, this is either going to be chaotic or absolutely gorgeous. And the way I'm looking at it, I think gorgeous is going to win out here. So we have our 8.5-inch center. I love this because this gives us a nice big block for these glorious prints to really stand out. I love the florals. The second thing we do is, now this is 8.5 inches. Our points we're going to cut down to 9 1/4. This is going to be our flying geese. And what we do is we have a 9.5-inch background, or what is actually going to be the goose, and then you take another 10-inch square, cut it into 4 5s, and that's going to become the points on the quilt. So step one is we take our 4 blocks, and you see when we cut them into 4 pieces, we put a diagonal. Now, because I really wanted the pink to stand out so that this blue recedes into the background, I made sure I drew the line through the pink so I have pink on both sides. Where something like this one, can you see that? If I'd have drawn the line this way, I'd have had one purple and one pink. So you can put as much thought into that as you want. Those are the little things that I like to do. That's fussy, but it makes me happy, so I do it. Okay, so we have our lines. We start with the first one, and actually I do it this way. We start with the first one and we sew a 1/4 inch down. Then when we get to this one here, we lift this up and put the second one in and continue sewing. So we go down one side and back up the other side. With this sewn down both sides of the lines, we are now going to cut this, and you're going to cut it right on the line. And this 1/4 inch that you sewed on each side, ooh, I got a little skimpy there. I'm going to have to touch that up. Each one that you sewed will have a 1/4 inch seam. Now we are going to press these open like this, and see how I'm getting the pink points that I wanted. It's still purple, but there's a lot of pink in there. And then what I'm going to do is bring these in, and I'm going to place this here and here. And then I'm going to sew up and down, up and down. Now I have a couple examples of this already sewn like this. So this is my piece, just like this one. I cut it in half and I press that towards the points. And then I lay an extra 5-inch square right on top, and see this 1/4 inch on each side of the line. And notice that when I'm sewing, I will snip off, when I cut the threads, I'll snip off these little points. That way they don't get all caught up in the sewing later on. So that's just one of the things I do while I'm sewing. So we've got our square, we cut it in half, press it open, and then we add the extra to create our 4 points. This then, when we sew up and around, we will cut again on that line. I'm going to pay a little more attention because I got a bit off on that last one. There we go. And so now we're going to have 2 flying geese, just like this. And then once those are pressed, that's what they're going to look like. And this is going to go around your center block. So we have an 8.5 inch center, and we're going to put our flying geese around, and the points are pink, the background being this blue, and essentially what we're going for is contrast to make those pink points stand out. And I think they stand out really well because there's a bit of pink in here that works, and it just works out nicely against that darker blue background. So that's perfect for me. Now we need to do these squares, and there's a couple ways to do that. What we need is a 5-inch half square triangle. So we basically can take 2 charm squares, sew them together, cut them in half, and we've got what we need. This, remember, this is going to be my corner in each of my blocks, so it creates that secondary pattern. And again, I want something darker here against my 2 points like that. And that's going to keep this pink as the dominant color. Now, I could have used this same one, but because it's a 90-degree pattern, I didn't want to have it, going wonky, 45 degrees, and it all looks like it's crooked. And you have to be a little careful when you have directional fabrics, particularly when there's stripes. So I went with dots, with circles, and that works out good. But this then will finish like this. And that's how this block is going to be made. Now, a couple things about these outer ones. So we know about this, the center cut to 8.5. We know about these outer flying geese. We start with a 9.25 inch center square and then 4 5-inch blocks. We do that and we're good. Now this you can make a couple different ways, and I have a sample of both. So the first thing you can do is you can just take the blocks that you want to use and put them together like this. Now, when I cut them, like I said, I will go ahead and, oh, I can't aim it. There we go. And I'll just snip off that little point as I go. It also cuts the thread. Then I'll turn it around and I'll get the threads in the other direction. And it makes a bit of a mess right here, but I'd rather have it here and have it done than have to do that after all the sewing. Half square triangles can be fussy and require some trimming, and so the more I can do in advance and less I have to deal with later is just a good thing for me. So now we've got that. We drew our line, we sewed our 1/4 inch down each side, and we are going to cut these in half, and this is going to give us our outer corner. And again, this becomes the background between the 2 points. This becomes the center square that's going to create the pattern. So I'm going to put that here. That's option 1. The second thing you can do is, and it's just a matter of what your preference is, you can either cut your 10-inch squares into 5-inch charms like this and sew them. And if you're going to mix up your fabrics, this may be the better way to do it because you can mix them up instead of having them all be the same. But in this particular case, what I'm doing is I have a 10-inch square. I have 2 together, right sides together. I drew a line corner to corner each direction. And then I sewed down both sides. And now I am going to cut these. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to cut these vertical and horizontal before I cut the actual diagonal lines. And as you're cutting, you're going to go right through that intersecting point where you sewed. So we're going to sew there, and as long as everything doesn't move, you can just keep going. And this should be at the 5-inch point. I have to stand up to get a good view here to see what's happening. Make sure I get through the corners. All right, so now this is the same point where I was before with the charms. So all I have to do is come in and trim these up. Not trim, but cut them down the center. So I have created a divot in my mat. I have used this particular line so much that whenever I use my rotary cutter, that thread that happens to be over that divot doesn't cut because it sinks in. So Mama needs a new mat. What can I say? But one thing at a time. First, we have to finish our quilt. So this then becomes our outer square, our outer half square triangle. So there's a couple ways to do it. And I just wanted to show you those options because, you know, it's kind of fun to look at different ways to make all these. So let me go ahead and set this aside. I have one other thing I do want to show you, and that's this right here. So here's a very purple and blue block. So here's my 8.5-inch square. This is my 9.25 inch. These are my 5-inch that created the Flying Geese pattern. And then these are my half square triangles. And the idea is, now again, you can use this same fabric in all the, what would be considered the background, but I kind of wanted to mix it up. Besides, I'm using a layer cake, and there aren't enough pieces, generally speaking, of a particular fabric to carry it through that much. So I chose to go ahead and mix it up a little more and just work with contrast in order to make these brighter and stand out from these darker ones. And we'll see when we put it all together how well that works. So what we do is we have a center square and we add our 2 flying geese. And then we have our flying geese on the bottom with 2 of our half square triangles, and we repeat that up on the top. And then when it's all sewn together, and this is the same block except the centers are different. I like mixing it up so not all of them are exactly the same. And I think it's stunning. I really, really like this. And I think it's going to be beautiful. So this is where we are. I'm liking it. I thought some of this might be too much. It's a lot of print, it's a lot of color, but again, it's about the placement. And if you arrange your contrast so that you have highs and lows, you know, brights and more subdued, it's really going to help you get what you want to stand out. And in my case, that's the star. And I think she looks pretty. So let me go ahead and make up some more blocks, and I'm going to show you what we can do. Now, one thing I do want to tell you, one layer cake will make, I think, like 10 to 11 blocks. It will not give you the full 12. I needed to get a few more layer cakes from some leftovers. So you need a total of 48. So you need a layer cake plus 6 more 10-inch squares. Now, I have already gone ahead and ordered another layer cake in this color because I know I want to make it bigger. But in the meantime, I also have some other Kaffe Fassett layer cake pieces left over from the, let's see, this is Peacock. So I have one from the Lipstick and I think from the Equator are the two that I used. And those have worked out really well. So I'm lucky that I was able to pull that all together. So I was able to do all this with things that I had here. That's the way I like to quilt. I don't want to have to go to the store and shop for this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece. I want to go and get a collection of fabric that I can use together. And then as I'm making it, I can take my time and sort through the fabrics and see what will go best, how this will work together, change it up a little, go to bed, get up, look at it. Do I still like it? Is it the best it can be? And that's my way of doing it. So once you find your rhythm and what works for you, that's what you need to count on. That's going to make a really big difference. So, okay, it's time. Let's go make some stars. I am really excited about these blocks, and I want to show you each one up close. I think they came out so nice. Oh, they're so pretty. And so see here, these are those pink points that I was working on. I think that worked out well. And these are the lighter pink. They look pretty. And a lot of these just have a mix of colors, and you know, these purple points stand out nice, and this works as a background. So it was kind of fun to make a certain group of fabrics work together and to complete a project that sort of set parameters that I'm not used to. You know, for me, I generally will go and grab what I want, and I keep adding and changing and, you know, pulling things here and there in order to get the colors I want. But by using specific restrictions, which meant within a layer cake, then, you know, it made me step outside my comfort zone and work on some other, you know, some other ideas that I wouldn't normally have chosen. And I'm really glad I did, because these are quite wonderful. I was a little worried in the beginning. I was thinking that this might be a bit too much and there was just too many colors, but I think it looks great. So now I'm going to put these together, and what I'm going to do is piece a 9-block quilt, 3x3. So I have 10 finished blocks of 42. A layer cake of 42 10-inch squares will give you 10 blocks. I have a few pieces left because I pulled some from some other layer cakes, but I need to wait till my other, you know, layer cake of this particular fabric comes in, and then I'll get it finished. But for now, I've got 9x9. I'm going to put that together and I'll show it to you. And that's what I'm going to post for the Layer Cake Lotto. So I hope you all give it a try. I don't expect that you're going to whip this up in a day and get this posted, but keep in mind, there's so much you can do with a layer cake. Like I showed you on the big one, you can cut it into quarters and make half square triangles. You can simply cut it into quarters, and then you have a bunch of charm squares, and you have more than enough to make a quilt. And if you downloaded the Baby Bricks pattern a couple weeks ago, there was a free pattern. That would be a great one to do, and just mix up some colors and do some fun things. And it's just kind of fun to put yourself out there and do a contest like this. I'll be honest, I've never done it before, but I thought it would be a lot of fun. So that's what I'm going to do, and I hope you give it a try as well. But either way, I'm just really glad to share this with you, and I hope it's a quilt that you enjoy and might want to make someday. And here she is. Check out this gorgeous quilt. Pretty in pink, right? With lots of purple and lots of blues, but somehow purple just keeps finding its way into my quilts. I'm not sure how that happens. But look at these pretty blocks, and they all work so well together. I'm going to hang this up so you can see it in the intro. Oh my goodness. Look at how pretty this is. Came out wonderful. I love these stars. Just look at those points, and I'm already thinking about quilting. I think on these large blocks, do like a swirly flower in the center of each one. That'll kind of focus here, and then in these, kind of do something in between the star points, maybe do a box in there. And of course, then we have the alternating one that is the corner. This is the corner unit, and it would be fun to quilt this in its own way too. So I have some big decisions to make, but look at these beautiful, beautiful blocks. I love it. So I hope you take part. I hope you decide to make yourself up a quick little quilt and submit it to the Layer Cake Lotto and on Facebook and Instagram, and we can see who's going to win some $100 gift certificates. How fun would that be? So thanks a lot for being here. It's been fun sharing this quilt with you and all these beautiful colors and the techniques that we use to make it. I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And remember, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video.